Jodi Scott, CEO and founder of Green Goo, is a seasoned visionary in health and wellness with over 2 decades of experience. Armed with a master's degree in health psychology and a background in pre-med, she specializes in psychoneuroimmunology, exploring the mind-body connection and the power of medicinal plants. Under her leadership, Sierra Sage Herbs has thrived, birthing multiple renowned brands, including Green Goo First Aid, Southern Butter Intimates, and the innovative Good Goo CBD line. Their mission centers on plant-based product development, guided by a unique full-spectrum lipid extraction process. Jodi Scott's pioneering spirit is propelling the health and wellness industry toward a holistic future marked by passion, innovation, and global impact. Hello everybody, here we are today for a new episode of the Healer Hub podcast. Today with me is Jodi Scott from Green Goo. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
You got it, Green Goo. There you go.
So Jodi, tell us who you are and what is your background story?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. Always a treat to be here. My name is Jodi. I'm the CEO of Spry Life and founder of Green Goo. And my mom's sister and I started this company together. So my sister is an herbalist and a midwife, and then I was pre-med. And we had an early passion for alternative modalities, alternative medicine, and really exploring how to make our lives cleaner and healthier. And so for us personally, we were working at health food stores and, bringing in more organic ingredients into our home, eating cleaner, trying and exploring natural body care products. And something that we observed that we found very interesting for ourselves initially was that here we had all these really clean ingredients, but when you opened up our first aid cabinet, we had tons of chemicals, tons of one-time waste, plastic tubes. And we were like, why are we making this exception for first aid? And yet we're really cognizant of our ingredients and our packaging and our lifestyle and so many other facets. And when we started to look at this category further, we recognized we weren't alone, that the natural consumer was willing to abandon their natural ethos because they thought products like Neosporin, hydrocortisone, calamine were the only products that could get the job done. And then when we looked into this category even further, we recognized that the conventional consumer wasn't happy either. So it really had nothing to do with even the natural space. It was that the conventional consumer was looking for products that worked better and that they were generally dissatisfied with the efficacy for over-the-counter products. And, what's so interesting is that the first aid space stays very focused on short-term acute skin conditions. So use this product for 5 to 7 days. If symptoms persist, discontinue use because it's dangerous to continue using and go see your physician. And the reality is most people are suffering from chronic skin conditions and they're looking for products that, one, give them results, but then two, that they can use over time. And chronic skin conditions are at an all-time high. And so we thought, as a family, could we crack the code? Could we make plant-based solutions that are superior in efficacy, first and foremost, and be natural, plant-based, and also sustainable, bring some sustainability to a space that really had not invited that before, and some personality, hence the name Green Goo, which is really kind of fun. And we have really great little taglines and fun messaging on the packaging as well. So Green Goo is where we started in terms of our plant-based adventure and bringing these products and formulations to customers.
That's really beautiful. I'm really curious about the fact that this is a female-led business and the fact that you are co-creating these beautiful products with your sister and your mother. And I'm wondering, how does this feminine energy play into the way that you are organizing the business, into the product, the way that you are serving your clients. I know that you're also investing in charity, in the community.
Yeah. So these products really embody who we are. One being women founded and led, and the three of us pioneering. We were one of the early adopters to being a certified women-owned company. And we also are a B Corp. So in building our company, we look at, business for good and how our business can positively impact communities, not just with the products themselves, with the clean ingredients and how we source, but how we actually build the company in terms of salaries, continued education, donating our time in terms of different public community service opportunities, and then working with philanthropic partners. And I don't know that I could do it any other way. I feel like that is so near and dear to us and who we are. And we really very much walk the talk. And, we have a saying, live simply so others can simply live. And so I look at these products as not only an opportunity to, solve a problem for a customer, meaning they have a chronic skin condition and we bring them a solution. But then we also are bringing an overall health and wellness improvement to their life and to the planet. And then also by the work that we do, through these products. And doing this with my mom and sister and I is one of the greatest gifts and joys that I have in doing this. And, most people will, think like, okay, you have a family business, what kind of drama are you guys dealing with every day? And that is the furthest from the case for us. I mean, now, mind you, the foundation was laid by amazing parents, and we grew up in the military, so we moved around everywhere. And having, your sister and your brother is like your nearest, dearest friend because you're constantly moving all the time. My parents really fostered and cultivated, a close family. So we were always, very tight, looking out for each other. And very similar in terms of our passions. And so then, you go into business together, and we did some good, like, family hygiene in the sense of, in starting the business together, we visited with other family businesses and got to know some of the blinders that we might have been naive going into and that perhaps could have caused drama later. And so it really set us up for success in terms of how we interact with each other professionally, what our roles are, creating some bumpers so that we can be protective of those lanes and also really consistent with our communication. And it's been incredible. And honestly, we're better, stronger for it, which is pretty great.
Yeah, it's really beautiful because I was thinking about that, how complicated it can sometimes be to be around family, but you absolutely answered that. And I know that each of you has a very specific role within the company, and it seems that it's very much aligned with your personalities and with your background.
Well said. Yes, we honor each other's superpowers, and we trust in that, and we know that we need to trust each other in those lanes, which I think is great advice. One of the early advice that we got from a group, because sometimes you think with family you can break some of those traditional ways of communicating in the various roles versus what you would do with a traditional employee, and you really have to be consistent. And it's healthy for our employees too, so our employees know that everyone is being treated equally and fairly, and that keeps the culture really strong. We have a high retention rate, and a beautiful culture with our team in terms of trust and confidence, and we have a good time.
What does healing mean to you, and how are you incorporating your philosophy of healing into Sierra Sage?
So I think, by nature, my mom, sister, and I are healers. That's just something we like to fix things. We like to be helpful. I got my master's in health psychology. So I was training resident physicians on the biopsychosocial model early before integrative medicine was a concept that we understand today. I was in the first health psychology master's program in the US. And I have always had a passion for improving our medical system and making it more equitable and looking at the patient as a whole person. And that's really where the biopsychosocial model came in terms of the physicians not just prescribing a medication, but really understanding the patient in a way that you can remove other barriers that may be preventing them from really exercising a good health and wellness protocol and or getting the best benefits to their medicine. So if they're prescribing a diabetic medication, also really looking at what are the other lifestyle changes that could be improved upon to have this medication better. And then that's from sort of like the outside looking in. But then I really discovered an area of medicine, psychoneuroimmunology, that I really, really love and appreciate. And this gives the empowerment to the individual in terms of how the mind, body, immune system, nervous system work together. And so, for example, my daughter got this awful cold this weekend and she had her dance recital and she was in tears and she was so worried about how she was going to perform. And I wasn't sure she was going to be able to perform. But what I did know was that if she was worrying about it, it was only going to hurt her immune system more. So I said, if there's any chance of you actually being able to perform today, what we need you to do is just really meditate, be really mindful for the next few hours. I want you to lay in bed and just be present and close your eyes and visualize your body healing. Visualize, your immune system working for you and really rest and be intentional with that. Because that, if there is any chance of you healing any quicker with this bug right now, that's going to be it. And so, bringing the power to the individual that we have the ability to, contribute to our healing. And we do that a lot with Green Goo in terms of talking about and educating the consumer in terms of, what is an integrative approach to your skincare. So we call it holistic skincare. And we have a term that we like to use at home called shaman. And it's an acronym that we use as kind of our North Star in terms of health and wellness. And the S stands for sleep. So making sure you're adding to your sleep bank. H is for hydration, and hydration is not just from the water or the beverages you choose. So thinking about your beverages wisely, are they going to serve you well or not? Are they going to pull hydration out of you because they're full of sugar, chemicals? But then even your beauty care products, like looking at hydrating, nutritive resources in your beauty care products, and also your food. Food can be hydrating if you choose them wisely. And then the next A is avoid, sugar, phthalates, parabens, fragrances, chemicals. Phthalates is the number one produced chemical on the planet. And the US produces 1 billion pounds of phthalates alone. And this is leaching from plastics in different containers. So when you're looking at ingredients, also look at the package that you're holding in your hand. And is that package good for you? And oftentimes we only think of packaging as a sustainability component. But truly, there's packaging that is healthier and better for you as well. And then M is mindfulness, which I'm just a huge proponent of that. And you don't have to meditate for, 30 minutes to 2 hours a day to get the benefits. And I really try to teach my daughter that like 30 seconds to 2 minutes randomly throughout the day can serve you well. And then the last A is antioxidants. So looking at the antioxidants from your food, they're just so powerful, along with, again, your beauty care. Your skin is your largest organ, and, food for your skin is real. So looking at those antioxidant opportunities on your skin and how you ingest them. And then N is nutrition, which just kind of dovetails there well in terms of thinking about that. So I like to look at skincare very holistically and lean in more with that, with our product development and with the products we bring in. One of our favorite plants is calendula. and it has antifungal, anti-yeast, antimicrobial properties. It's incredibly hydrating, but it's also a plant stem cell. And so it's a beautiful antioxidant that provides all kinds of nutrition. And something that's really unique about what we do, to give you an idea of the purity of these products and the nutritive opportunities, is that we make most of the ingredients ourselves. So we're not buying like pre-made extracts that are already produced on the market. We actually bring the plants to our manufacturing facility, take them through this extraction process, yield high amounts of the medicinal properties from the plants, and then those unique oils go into these products. And so, one, you can't get these blends anywhere because they're the unique blends that we're creating. You can't get a concentration of the plants like this because we're yielding high amounts of those plants. And then we're not putting in the extra sneaky ingredients that either don't serve you well or actually inhibiting the efficacy of the product.
So your sister Jen is a certified herbalist, but it seems that you also gathered either knowledge, or did you become just really passionate about plants and
Yeah. Well, my pre-med background combined with her being a certified herbalist, midwife, Ayurvedic practitioner really just gels well. I love organic chemistry, so I can look at ingredients and process and make sure that we've got a stable formula and how that marriage might work. While my sister keeps the herbs top of mind in terms of what are the herbal properties and are they sustainable? Something else is we don't go and pick herbs that could impact the earth negatively by over harvesting them. I mean, most of these herbs are weeds that don't need a whole lot of water to grow. The more you harvest them, the happier that they are. And so personally, for both my sister Jen and I, formulating is probably our favorite thing to do. If we could just do anything all day long, we would be the mad scientists playing with plants and essential oils and different plant-based oils and looking at what magic we may be able to put together. I was working with someone who was pitching a product to us. And, he had this really great blend of ingredients, and one particular ingredient, his process was really interesting. And so it was so fun to bring him into our lab and be like, okay, let's improve upon this and let's, bring some other variables to it. And that would be fun. And cracking the code of, finding products on the market that the consumer is either bringing a lot of chemicals into their home or a lot of waste, and looking at how we may be able to improve those formulas to make them sustainable and more productive. So fun.
I love it. It seems that you're really passionate, and I'm thinking that I'm very science prone, or I have a mind that understands concepts, and I used to love mathematics and physics, but I hated chemistry. And as I'm listening to you speaking about this, I'm thinking, well, had we learned about these things, probably I would have loved it, but it was all so sterile in, post Soviet Union. I grew up in Romania, so it was all very sterile. But I think that a lot of kids would actually love to do this kind of witchcraft and learn about herbs and mix together herbs with oils and create, magical potions.
I was really lucky to have in high school a great chemistry teacher, and I think that paved the way for me. And honestly, I found chemistry a language. And so for me, it was like I could speak that language better than my own native language, because for how he brought it into my world was really fun. So, I love chemistry.
So you mentioned alternative holistic ways of healing, and I can see this body-mind rapport that you're mentioning in the way that you helped your daughter navigate her cold and being able to show up for her dance recital by taking care of the thoughts. What would be some suggestions, some pieces of advice that you could share with listeners who are interested in having a more holistic approach to healing?
That's a beautiful question. And so, thinking about it from a holistic perspective, it's like the word in itself gives you a vision of what you could achieve. And so when I say that is when I think of like nutrition, not only, is it you can, kind of feel the difference or see the difference, or maybe your performance is better because you're an athlete, but it starts the journey of the veil. And I call it like, as soon as you start really leaning in on your overall mind, body, spirituality, wellness, the veil becomes thinner. And that's like the reward. It's like the clarity, the strength, the discernment, the ability to manage stress becomes so empowering that you don't want to go back. It's like all of a sudden you have like a junk food night, and the next day you're like, ooh, I don't feel so great today. The junk food hangover. It gives you power, it gives you fuel. And so, I always say, look at it holistically. So, give yourself the opportunity to exercise and have that mindfulness, and don't be intimidated by the fact that you may not be someone who wants to meditate for an hour and you think you have to have that in order to get it. Like, I can't sit still. They joke around that I was a bee in a past life, and I don't want to sit and meditate for an hour, but I can do, a minute here, 2 minutes here throughout the day. Gratitude is like an incredible like mindfulness tool, and just practicing gratitude in itself, has those tentacles where it serves you, and you actually, there's plenty of data to show that it changes your brain, and it opens up other neuro pathways. And, there's more studies coming out, even as it relates to skincare, in terms of mindfulness and improving your skincare, where they had like the Journal of Behavioral Medicine, the Journal of Dermatology did studies where they said, okay, we're going to have these patients practice a certain amount of mindfulness throughout the day. And how does that change their eczema flare up? And they saw that it improved their white blood cell count, it improved oxygen flow to the wound site, and it reduced inflammation, all because that cortisol hormone, was really the driver in terms of calming that the cortisol like rush, if you will, getting out of fight or flight. And there's something to be said about when you're present, your body operates differently. And so much of what we do is living in the future or living in the past, and down to our phones alerting us to what we're watching on TV, what we're worried about on the to-do list, and then regretting what we didn't do, or what we should have done differently, instead of maybe just being curious. Like, being curious in itself is better than living anxiously in the future in terms of how it impacts your physical health and wellness. So I hope that we can continue to develop this at Green Goo and bring more of those tools and resources, so that we're not only bringing these amazing products that, are going to perform for you, but then also helping you be a part of that relationship, so that you also can be a part of the holistic healing process, because, we can unlock that power. It's pretty great.
I love that. And it makes me think about agency and sovereignty. And I think that a lot of people are starting to understand that traditional medicine has a lot of limits, and the medical system in itself, depending on where you live in the world, is kind of limited in certain ways. And God forbid, I'm very grateful for the fact that if I break my ankle, I can go to an emergency room. And at the same time, I'm also helping my clients to understand actually their emotions by seeing how they manifest on their skin, for example. So of course, I don't want to bring a stereotypical way of seeing this, but for example, if you have acne on your face, the face being the way that you present yourself to the world, there can be an element of hiding, or an element of I'm showing how I actually feel inside, so that people can see what I'm struggling with. And tiny things that we can give certain ideas, general ideas, but it's more an invitation of becoming so intimate with your own body so that you can see how your mind operates by reading your body, and the other way around, seeing the way that your thoughts and your emotional universe impacts the way that your body reacts to the world and the way that your body interacts with the world.
It's so beautifully said. And, I couldn't agree with you more too, as well as modern medicine is a gift. It's a wonderful thing to have. And, every doctor will tell you, my favorite patient to work on is a healthy one. When you have that accident or that emergency or, the disease that presents itself, the healthy patient has better outcomes. And so that is the gift as well of having this mindful health and wellness journey, is that, we can't predict every event that's going to happen, and we sure can't problem solve everything as we're learning to unlock the body and the different mechanisms, but it sure can have a massive influence on our day to day and the potential outcome of, some of those unforeseen events. And as you get to know yourself in that vein, then when that fight or flight moment comes, you're able to practice it, because that's really when you need it to serve you most, is when you're in a state of mind that's more difficult to get out of. And so I love how you said, like, getting to know how your mind works, get to know yourself. And, there's a term called positive intelligence that I've found that it's really served me well. And the reason I like that so much is that it gives you kind of some clues of who you show up when you're in fight or flight. And then you can start to recognize that person that shows up, and you can work on different tactics and approaches so that when that person shows up and hijacks you, you can like work your way out of that so that you don't have those blinders. And you can also serve other people well in terms of when they're hijacked, and being able to have some empathy for them and also bring them some resources, because neurons mirror neurons, and they there's scientific evidence to prove that. So if you can show up what we call sage, or like in that state of being, the people around you will too. And then the magic happens. Some really interesting stuff happens when we're not, insecure or worrying about things that we get so caught up in that consume us. They just consume us.
Yeah.
I would love if they taught emotional intelligence in grade school, that it was a part of the school system. Because imagine what that would be like for children to be really aware and good stewards of their overall mind, body, health, and wellness, instead of waiting until we're adults to figure it out.
Yeah.
It'd be great.
And decondition everything that we've been that has
Yes.
been unconsciously in us. I do see it in my coach friends' kids' reaction when they say things like, "I need a moment now," or "That wasn't very nice of you to say that to me." And I'm thinking, I didn't have that capacity as a child to pause and be like, "Yeah, that wasn't very nice what you told me."
Yes.
And I think it is a work in progress, and probably that's why more and more people are interested in alternative ways of healing, because I think the system was built for something that is, maybe it wasn't really serving well humanity, and more people are trying to find ways, just like you did through your master and through your studies, of bringing this aspect of I would call it wisdom in a certain way, because
I like that.
yeah, a doctor outside of your body can only help you that much. But if you bring your own inner wisdom, just like women, when they tune into the capacity of their own cycle, their moon cycle, and working with their moon cycle, a lot of things change around them, because they understand that shame and guilt that is built into us because we cannot perform equally every single day, this expectation, patriarchal expectation of having the same type of performance every day, It's just a utopia, and our bodies are not built for that. We have the circadian rhythm and we have the infradian rhythm, and when women start tuning into that, then you see their lives flourishing. And you also see this. I see it with, I saw it with myself, and I see it also with clients. The cravings, you understand that they stand for something, and sometimes they stand for a lack of nutrients, or maybe you need more protein and that's why you crave sugar. But it can also be that you crave chocolate because you actually want more love in your life, or you
Right.
crunchy because you are craving adventure actually.
Oh, I love all of that. There's so much to unpack there. And I wrote down inner wisdom. That is a beautiful term. And yeah, I mean, unlocking that inner wisdom and how powerful that is to serve you, because we're so inundated with whether it's someone, the TV with commercials of foods and cravings and ways to perhaps influence and manipulate, not in a way that serves you. And so having that inner wisdom and then the education and the information around it, and so much to say about women and our cycles, and not bringing it's so unfortunate, the shame that has been circumventing that for so long. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm so grateful for you and these kinds of conversations that help give hope for for a change in the future. I was talking to my 4-year-old niece the other day, and she couldn't believe some of the facts that I was giving her about has there been a woman president? When did women start getting to vote? And I was just giving her all these examples. And when I dropped her off to my sister's house, I was like, "Good luck. She has lots of questions for you," because she's like, "What? Like, why?" Like, and I to a 4-year-old, like, you think about so many things in life that if you can't simplify it, an explanation to give to a 4-year-old, then we have a real problem. And I was like, I don't have a great answer for you. Like, I don't have an answer for you on why. I can give you a bunch of theories and speculations, but none of them really have great value in terms of explaining this, and I'll use the word loosely, inequality.
Yeah. I'm wondering also, we're going to shift a bit into plant medicine. So you have a background in psychology, and I know that you are interested in the way that plant medicine, and specifically, I'm always very scared to pronounce it because I always have a problem.
Just think of it silly Simon, because it's silly Simon.
Psilocybin. It's I have to
It's fair.
vulnerability there.
And spelling it is worse.
Yeah.
So true.
So how can it be used to treat alternatively psychological matter?
Yes, I love, never did I think that I'd be talking to my like mom and dad, about psychedelics and the rescheduling and the health benefits. But I am just so hopeful that these alternative modalities are going to provide solutions for some of these incredibly underserved and challenged communities. So, growing up in the military, PTSD was a very common discussion in our home. And unfortunately, suicide were discussions that we had because of so many military people. And these people suffer for so long. And I've had the incredible opportunity to work with a clinical trial up in Nova Scotia that is looking at psilocybin for treatment-resistant PTSD. And the outcomes of these very short clinical trials is beyond anything you see in traditional psychology. So typically, especially with therapy, sometimes you feel like it's, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and it just takes years and years. And we're seeing in this group of servicemen and women and veterans that they're getting an 80% remission rate only after a micro and macro dose, which is incredible. On top of the fact they're coming in for, suicidal ideation and depression, but they also are overweight and may have drug and alcohol dependency. They don't have hobbies. They have massive anxiety. They're afraid to leave their homes. So there's a lot of other tentacles to this PTSD and how it presents on the day to day. And they go through this treatment and they're going to concerts and they're having dinner parties and they're losing weight and they quit drinking alcohol. And it's just phenomenal to see the improvements in their lives. And, when we would talk about neuroplasticity in health psychology, it was very much, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. So it was like, up until this age, you had strong neuroplasticity, meaning that you could, learn things quickly. And so you better deal with any trauma that you have when you're younger, because when you get older, your neuroplasticity reduces significantly. And it makes it very difficult to change these neuropathways and these habits. And what we're finding with psychedelics and specifically psilocybin is that's not the case. These brain scans while they're under the influence is phenomenal. And then combine that with therapy, you're getting incredible results. And so, and we're seeing this in, phantom limb is another perfect example of people who, have had an amputation and they continue to feel the limb that's there, that's in chronic pain. And they go through, a psychedelic therapy and all of a sudden, they've extinguished this pain that they were having. And, MindMed just came out with a result in terms of general anxiety in their clinical trial. And general anxiety, I would say, is probably one of the most pervasive, difficult treatments or, psychological diagnosis to treat. And they're seeing results in macro doses of LSD. And, Ibogaine is another one in the opioid crisis. And people who are they're dependent on very strong opioids that have terrible withdrawal symptoms. And they go through an Ibogaine treatment and they not only don't have the withdrawal symptoms, but they also have a whole new perspective on life. And they're able to keep a 50, 60% remission rate, which we just don't see. So rescheduling these and providing more funding for the research so we can have data-driven wellness on these alternative modalities, I think it's critical. And it's changing how we look at the science too. We're even seeing now brain scans of people doing, different meditation practices and having the same heightened neuroplasticity results where we can have significant changes in behavior, habits, psychological challenges. And so I think it's also opening up a whole new way of us looking at how the mind-body relationship works. And then I love the equitable component to psychedelics. And you don't see this in big pharma. We're not talking about equitable medicine in big pharma, but we do talk about that in the alternative modalities. And a lot of these plants and, different medicines come from indigenous communities in different places on the planet. And it really drives home a more conscious relationship with these alternative modalities that bring in, the relationship that the patient is going to have with these products and where they're coming from and making them equitable. And so I'm really grateful for that as well. I'd love to see that like bleeds over into, our more modern medicine, relationship. Perhaps there's something we'll learn from that. But it's a start. So I'll take a start, the door's cracked.
I love it because I feel that I lost my innocence in regards to that. I've lost my hope on big pharma, but who knows, maybe it's not the truth. MAPS is doing a great job in the States, and I'm also very grateful for the way that they are reintroducing research, because I think it was during Reagan's mandate that they called the war on drugs, and all the research on psychedelics was stopped. And now Zurich and I think in New York, John Hopkins, there are certain polls around the world, but mostly I think Switzerland and in different states in the United States, they are picking that up, and MAPS is a strong proponent of research in the psychedelic domain. And yes, the data is irrefutable, and I'm really happy that we have now the data and people who are actually doing very tangible research and proving that this is extremely helpful for suicidal ideation, terminal cancer, patients in
End of life. Oh,
yeah.
it's incredible. I had a wonderful opportunity to meet Rick Doblin, and spend a little bit of time with him and listen in an intimate setting on the work that they have been doing at MAPS, and just the lifetime commitment that he and his team have made. And what, going back to the stigma, a stigma of these alternative modalities, and doing it so gracefully, and just keep fighting the good fight. And so, hats off to him and their team and the efforts.
And I think also to people like you, right? Because it's still taboo in so many parts of the world to just mention the interest in how psychedelic is shaping the world of alternative health. And the more people are speaking about this, I think the more interest there is and the more curiosity there is. And just to speak also, my first introduction was through How to Change Your Mind. I think it's on Netflix.
Yes.
And they were talking about peyote and how, well, peyote is actually used by certain communities in ritualistic forms. And then we kind of appropriate that. So there is a way of doing mescaline in a I'll say in a respectful way, where we are not appropriating something that is ritualistically used by a tribe or a different culture. So there are really beautiful ramifications to all the discussion around psychedelics.
That's pretty great. I think the next 5 years are going to be incredible as these doors start to open and more of this data, and the actual medicines become available, and we get to see, how this impacts us in such a positive way.
Yeah, yeah. I am curious about your biggest dream at this moment, Jodi.
My biggest dream, that we all heal. And however that definition means for everyone, have everyone live their best life, and love thy neighbor, and the purest sense, and help each other as we get through this dance of life and the practice of being human. That would be great. And I hope that we can find ways to sprinkle that in people's lives through the work we're doing at Green Goo, and our future product development and various partners. And that's how I hope to spend all my days here, and making a positive impact on people's lives and the planet.
Yeah. And speaking about that, I would love actually for you to speak a bit about your CBD line. I think there is a lot of confusion, maybe less in the States, but in other parts of the world, where CBD is still illegal, and people cannot use it for inflammatory flare-ups or diseases. So yeah, it would be great if you could touch upon that.
It's a perfect example of how the hemp plant has been stigmatized, like a lot of these other alternative modalities, because hemp looks like the marijuana plant, and yet it has, it's not the same. So the industrial hemp, and it was really interesting when the Farm Bill passed. So we had been talking to buyers and customers about these plant-based solutions, and explaining how we extracted from plants. But I really attribute the hemp industry to having people really understand that you have medicinal benefits from plants, truly directly from the plants. I was at a trade show, and this was right when the Farm Bill was passing, and they had like a keynote speaker at lunchtime, and they, talked about, hey, if you want to have, CBD products on the shelf, here's how you do it, here's how it's processed, here's the benefits. And so when they came back to my booth later that day, I was like, hey, remember how they were talking about CBD and the hemp plant? And I was like, that's what we do at Green Goo, except for there's no hemp in any of these plants or in any of these products. But there's actually naturally occurring CBD in echinacea, black pepper, arugula. So quite honestly, CBD exists in a lot of other plants. It's just that the hemp plant gets the biggest attention. Now, obviously, it has really high volumes, and I'm a huge proponent. So, and heck, the endocannabinoid system is relatively new in science. But the reality is that in our skin, we have these receptors where the CBD binds, with the endocannabinoid system. And this is why CBD in skincare is just so great. And it calms the system. And what we have found, so Good Goo is our CBD line, and it has all the plants that Green Goo has, but it also has the hemp plant included. And one, we have the same process. So we're protecting the integrity of the plant. We're bringing it, and we're really big fans of that. It's like we call it the entourage effect. Our products are like freshly squeezed orange juice versus, adding, a powder substance to your water. And you get the beautiful cannabinoid profile, and you get a high concentration of that. So you get the CBG, the CBN, the CBD, the chlorophyll, the terpenes. All of that is magical. But then while it's calming your endocannabinoid system, it makes the other plants even that much more effective. So our dry skin formula, which is used for eczema and psoriasis, Johns Hopkins has been using that in their scleroderma and skin condition department for over a decade. Well, when we sent them Good Goo, they were like, wow, like take your, outcome, and it's just elevated that much more. And it really, I think, works so beautifully with the other medicinal properties and the relationship it has with the other plants in terms of how it impacts your body and being able to kind of calm the body down to let the other plants work their magic. So I am a huge fan of CBD. I think it's really important to be informed on where you're getting your CBD, your hemp, how is it being sourced? There's a lot of greenwashing out there. A lot of CBD isn't necessarily better. I think when CBD first came out on the market, everyone's like, oh, I want the one with 5,000 milligrams, but it might be an extract. It might have been grown in, dirt that's not beneficial, because another great thing about hemp is it cleans our soil. It's a very regenerative plant. But you don't want to have that version of the hemp plant, in your body care products. So, having that transparency of where your hemp is coming from is really important. But I think that what I've learned is having a certain amount of CBD and that cannabinoid profile in your food and in your body care can have long lasting effects. And, if you're familiar with telomeres, they are the end caps of your DNA. And we look at our longevity based on the length of these telomeres. And, obviously, as they get shorter, the potential for them to have a negative impact on our DNA and overall wellness is bad. And we're finding that, CBD and these different plant properties in our skin can have a positive impact on our telomeres through stimulating the enzyme that regenerates our telomeres. So although we think of our skin as the largest organ and it's just something to protect us from what's outside or protecting our joints and bones, our skin is we are learning as we get more data-driven wellness that our skin has a greater impact on our overall health and wellness. And so, as we go into this next chapter of really getting to know our overall, the science and the wellness journey, I think we're gonna identify that our skin influences it more than we thought. And we have a saying in our home. We call it butter up or salve up, and we'll go and we'll put our Green Goo on from head to toe after a shower. And then we put our bathrobe on and we just let our skin soak it up, just soak it up. And I'm telling you, the next day, you just feel different. Like you feel better. Like, and it's very much a mindset, and there's more happening with your skin than we even know today.
Yeah. Yeah. Who has been your inspiration and why do you find them inspiring?
Oh, it's gonna have to be my mom and sister. I mean, truly, they are my heroes. My sister is just a naturalist and a purist in the truest sense, and such an authentic human, and just genuine and kind and sweet, and really takes like her love in these plants and in these formulas is true to the core. And my mom's unwavering tenacity and commitment and fortitude to, I mean, she's where I get the busy bee from, you know. I mean, growing up in the military, she didn't, you know, you don't get to be a career person when you're a partner in the military because you have to move around everywhere you go. And you don't get to reinvent and this was before there was the internet. And then my mom identified this thing called the computer, and perhaps she could learn how to code, and perhaps she could figure out how to have a mobile job. And she was my first computer teacher. She was the first person to make a website for Green Goo. That website still converts better than any website we've ever had. And her appetite for learning something new and being like, okay, let's remove hurdles. We can figure this out. And so the three of us having that energy together of like, let's remove hurdles. We can learn this. We can figure it out, along with like the authenticity of these formulas and these plants. Like, they're my heroes for sure.
I love that. And I love that somehow I can feel them, both of them in you, and the way that you are channeling everything that you are around your business. I had to go into the woo side of
I
it.
love that. I love that.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Jodi. Thank you for being here with us today. Where can we find you online?
Greengoo.com. That's the best place. You can find all of our other brands there and learn about the family and things to come. And then Green Goo Helps is our social channels, and Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, all those fun places. All the things.
And all the links are going to be in the notes of the show. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And thank you again, Jodi, for co-creating with me this beautiful episode.
Thank you. It was my pleasure and honor.
The best way to support the Healer Hub podcast is to review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and share it with your people. Thank you so much. Deeply grateful for your support.